Literally every time I'm scrolling through Instagram or TikTok, I am served up some type of ad for some type of anti-aging device that is promising to sculpt my face or improve my collagen or essentially make me look like I walked right out of a dermatologist's office. But are any of these gadgets actually worth the hype? That is what we're talking about today. Hi, I'm Dr. Sam Ellis. I am a board-certified dermatologist, and I'm here to help you understand your skin and find products that work for you. We delve into the science, we cut through the noise so that you don't waste your time or your money. So if that sounds good to you and you like that type of content, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss a video and you give this one a thumbs up. If you're anything like me, maybe you've purchased a skincare device or 2 or 3, and I'm just curious, do you still use yours or is it sitting in the back of a drawer somewhere? Let me know in the comments. Okay, let's start with perhaps the most Instagram famous device of all, LED light therapy masks. The science behind these masks, or sometimes you'll even see them as a panel, is that red light and near infrared light at very specific wavelengths can help stimulate collagen and can help with things like wound healing and be anti-inflammatory. And there's actually pretty good research to back this up. Consistent use of red light LED therapy devices can help with fine lines, they can help reduce redness in the skin, and in general, in my personal experience and with patients in my practice, they've seen benefit with using these consistently. I've actually done a separate video that is like a full deep dive into the science specifically of LED therapy masks. So if you want more of that and how to pick a great mask, I would check that out. The pros for me, and the reason I use a red light therapy mask, even with having access to all the things in my office as a dermatologist, is because they're very safe. I can use it really consistently with 0 downtime, and it's just a different mechanism of stimulating collagen that my lasers and my topical retinoids don't approach my skin from. On the other hand, these masks aren't cheap, and if you're going to get a high quality mask, which is essential for seeing any type of result, you do have to put in a little bit of spend. The other thing is you have to be really consistent, so if you're someone who's not going to use an at-home device regularly, this is not the thing for you. And you have to be okay with subtle results. This is not the same as a laser that's going to completely resurface your skin. Everything we're doing at home typically is just nudging your skin towards being better. You also do need to be a little bit careful with these types of masks if you have melasma. Some of these masks release a small amount of heat, and heat can be stimulatory towards melasma. So if you struggle with hyperpigmentation, just be cautious. It doesn't mean you can't use a mask, but you should really closely observe what happens to your pigmentation when you start incorporating an LED mask into your routine, and just make sure it's not getting worse. So my final verdict, as you can probably guess, is I do recommend light therapy masks if you can be consistent with them. They're not a total waste of money like some of the things I will be talking about in this video. There are tons of LED mask brands out there. The 2 I typically recommend are by Omnilux and by Current Body. Those masks both have the right specs to get you the right results. They have the right power to get you the right results, and they're both really high quality masks. I have used both and loved both. Now, if you don't want to wear a mask, these red light devices also come in panel form, which can be a little more convenient for some people, especially because you can use them on other parts of your body as well. The brand I typically recommend is Celluma, but there are other great brands out there as well. Would you use something like this a few times a week, or would it just sit on your counter? Now let's move on to the so-called 5-minute facelift. Microcurrent devices. Maybe you've heard of some of the brands like NuFace or Zip, and these are microcurrent devices. They essentially use a very low-level electrical current to stimulate facial muscles. And really the claim with these types of devices is that you get a little bit of muscle tone. They also try to sort of insinuate that you might also get collagen improving benefits from these, but that data just isn't really there. As a dermatologist who specializes in cosmetics, when I'm thinking about an aging face and how we restore an aging face, you're sort of thinking of all the different levels. You're thinking about the bone, the fat pads, the dermis, so the deeper layers of the skin, and the epidermis, the more top layers of the skin where you might see discoloration. What I'm not really thinking about is the muscular layer, because decline in the muscular layer has not been shown to be associated with an aging face. And in fact, some muscles become bulkier or more prominent as the face ages. So it's never really made sense to me why stimulating your muscles would actually improve your face as you age. And in fact, we use things like Botox to relax your muscles, and that has tons of evidence behind it to help an aging face. So the exact opposite. Now, I've definitely seen people who have used these online, and sometimes they show like an immediate result right afterward, and maybe because the muscle is like a little bit activated, but I have never seen any type of like long-lasting result from these. I'm also wondering if because we're sort of like gliding and putting some pressure on the face, you're almost doing like a lymphatic drainage situation, which if you are puffy or you hold a little bit of fluid in your face, you're definitely gonna look more sculpted and more lifted afterward when that fluid is gone. But that has nothing really to do with the microcurrent that's being delivered to the muscles and much more to do with just the manual pressure and massage. On one hand, these are safe, relatively painless. You might see some like subtle snatchness right afterward, but on the con side, there's really no evidence that they provide a lasting result of any kind, and they're generally quite expensive, usually in like the $200 to $500 range. And for me, for the lack of evidence that exists, that's not worth it. Now, over the years, I have had patients who use a microcurrent device and absolutely love it. So if you've tried it and you love it, or you felt like it didn't do anything, let us know in the comments. I want to know either way. The next thing I want to talk about is microneedling, which is an incredible in-office treatment, but a little trickier to do at home. Microneedling essentially creates controlled injury within the skin. So we are purposely traumatizing the skin in order to induce a cascade of growth factors. That stimulation leads to new collagen formation, new elastin formation, new blood vessel growth. It basically creates skin remodeling and encourages your skin to be stronger and better. And the depth of the microneedles is also important. When you're doing a professional in-office treatment, microneedling depths usually range from about 0.5 millimeter all the way up to 2.5 millimeters. And it's actually at some of these deeper depths that we have the most data to support collagen stimulation. The challenge with doing some of these derma rolling or microneedling things at home, whether using the roller itself or a little stamp or even a pen, is you usually don't go much deeper than 0.5 millimeter. And if you were to try to go deeper with those devices without any anesthetic at home, it would be incredibly painful. And if you're not going deep in the skin, which I will say is not always necessary, but often can be helpful for instigating a more robust wound healing cascade and generating more new collagen and elastin formation. Especially if you're trying microneedling for things like acne scarring or deep wrinkles, at-home treatments are generally just not gonna cut it. The other thing is you're like making a wound in your skin. So that comes with its own set of risks. Obviously, infection. So in a clinic, we are really thoroughly disinfecting. We have proper aftercare instructions. Now, that's not to say that you're not capable of doing that at home, but you kind of have to know yourself and know whether or not you're going to be thorough and precise enough to not give yourself an infection. Also, the end point we are looking for when we are performing a microneedling service is to induce what we call pinpoint bleeding. And if you're at home and you're on blood thinners, for example, or you just start to bleed more than you expect, that can be triggering for some people. My first introduction to microneedling ever was actually before I was a dermatologist. It was when I was an intern, and it was in the ER because someone had been microneedling themselves at home, started to bleed, passed out, and then hit themselves on their bathroom counter, and they had a big gash in their forehead. Now, after hearing all that, you might think, okay, it's clear that Dr. Ellis is not a fan of at-home microneedling. And I'm not a fan. I just give it the caveat that if you have deeper scarring or deeper wrinkles, the chance that you're going to see exciting improvements with what you can achieve at home with microneedling is limited. I think the biggest problem I have is a lot of at-home microneedling devices are marketed as miracles, where it looks like your skin is going to be poreless and you're going to be able to achieve the same results as you would with an in-office treatment, and that is just, it's not the case. Also, this is a more invasive treatment, and if you were to have a complication like an infection or scarring, or I've seen it induce acne in people, it kind of helps to be plugged in with a dermatologist who can guide you through that healing process. So I think when it comes to guiding the average person, I would say you probably skip the at-home microneedling treatments. But if you're a little bit more adventurous, if you understand that you might not get the same results as you would in the office, but you have that type of curiosity, it may be worth trying. Okay, next up are those glass wand devices. They're usually glowing orange or purple, and people are putting them all over their faces. Those are high-frequency wands. Oftentimes they are marketed for acne and killing acne-causing bacteria, but the other thing they're marketed for is anti-aging and stimulating collagen, essentially through like heat delivery deep in the skin. Now, for a device like this, there is essentially zero peer-reviewed research to prove that these work. And I know it looks kind of cool, and anecdotally, you'll hear people all the time talk about how much they love their high-frequency wand for anti-aging, but I'm not really buying it. I think if you're trying to use something like this for acne, the thought is essentially you are delivering oxygen to the skin, which can kill acne-causing bacteria. And I've definitely had patients over the years really like it for that, though there are many other much more proven acne treatments out there, but when it comes to anti-aging specifically, this is definitely a skip for me. If you want to be using a light-based device to help with anti-aging, we have way more data for the red light therapy devices. Also, anytime you're using like a wand or another type of pinpoint device where you're having to hold it on one area of the skin and then move it to another section, that's just a big time commitment and something to be aware of. Now, some of you might be like, yeah, never was really interested in an at-home frequency wand anyway, but what about the at-home laser devices like the Nira laser or the Lima laser? Let's talk about those next. The Nira laser, for example, uses a 1450 nanometer wavelength, which is actually very similar to the wavelength we use for a clear and brilliant laser in an office setting. The challenge with a laser like that is that the power is incredibly low. So the wavelength of a laser is only one aspect of what determines if it's effective. The power, the density of the beams, the duration of treatment, how many passes you do, these are all things that also determine whether or not you're going to have collagen stimulation. In this case, that's the goal for these. And the reality is these are such weak lasers that how much benefit you're going to see is going to be very, very conservative. The other at-home laser that is quite popular and does have incredible marketing, I will give them that, is the Lima laser. This is an 808 nanometer laser, so goes deeper in the skin, essentially meant to stimulate collagen. But again, the power of this laser is really, really low. It's the whole reason that it's considered safe to use at home. You cannot give someone a high-powered laser to use at home. They could really hurt themselves. Aside from the low power, one of the bigger problems I have with this particular laser is you have to hold it on your face for 3 minutes at a time and then move to another section and hold for 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. You're looking at like a 15 to 60 minute treatment every single day for the first 3 months of using that laser, and that is just not realistic for most people. Also, these at-home laser devices are not cheap. They're quite an investment, and I think if you're really trying to get tangible results, you are much better off going in and doing a single laser session in an office than daily treatment with something like this. Ultimately, I think when it comes to these at-home lasers, it's not that you will have zero benefit, but you also have to think, how valuable is your time? And for a lot of my patients, at least, they would much rather commit to something in the office, have that like one appointment that's set up, and then when they're outside the office, they can be really low maintenance with their routine. The other concern I have with at-home laser devices is even a laser at low power can be damaging to your vision. And I know these companies put safety guards in place, but straight up, if you accidentally point a laser into your eye, it can permanently damage how you're able to see. And so it's just something I think about as a physician, and I just, number one, above efficacy, like I always want my patients to be safe. For these devices specifically, I'm really thinking of two things, like how valuable is your time and how realistic is it that you're gonna be consistent? Also, we can't forget that this is still a laser, so I'm very curious, would you feel comfortable using a laser on yourself at home? Now, this last device I'm gonna talk about isn't actually for anti-aging, but because I get asked about it so much, we need to go over it, which is IPL devices at home for hair removal. IPL stands for intense pulsed light. You may have heard about it in the context of anti-aging because with certain wavelengths, it can help with brown spots and red spots in the skin. But at other wavelengths, it can also help with hair removal. It essentially targets the pigment in the hair follicle, damages it, and ideally makes that hair not grow back again. And here's the good news. There is evidence that this actually works. Multiple studies have shown noticeable hair reduction with consistent use of IPL. Usually the treatments are stacked pretty close together in the beginning, and then you do treatments every 3 months to every year as maintenance. So I wouldn't actually consider it permanent hair reduction, it's more like semi-permanent, but that's actually pretty similar to how like an in-office laser hair removal treatment would be as well. And similar to at-home lasers, the at-home IPL devices are not going to be the same power or intensity as an IPL device in an office. And because these devices are at a lower power, they're really going to work best for people who have high contrast between their skin color and their hair color, meaning someone who has very fair skin and very dark hair. I like the idea of these because they're convenient, they're cost effective, there's evidence that they work. The biggest risk really is that you just don't get as much impact or efficacy as you would with an in-office treatment. And I want to remind you that just like in-office hair removal, at-home IPL hair removal is not going to work for hair that is gray, white, red, or blonde. You need a significant amount of pigment in the hair itself for that light energy to actually target and destroy the follicle. So this is actually one of the few at-home devices I would recommend. You just have to be a good candidate, know you're gonna be consistent, and understand that your results might be there, but they might not be completely optimized. If you are going to invest in at-home IPL, I do recommend picking a very reputable brand. You want to make sure that it's going to have good safety markers and that they've done some testing to show that it actually helps remove hair. So the one by Philips, the one by Braun, those are both great. I will link them in the description box. I know I have my views on things, but I would also love to hear from you. Have you tried any of these devices? Did they work? Did they not work? Please let us know in the comments. We love to see it. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you next time.